Hello everybody, welcome to another live coding session. So today my plan is to look into something new, and specifically to look shortly, it's not going to be a long session this time, but we'll be looking into the Launcher API, which is used on UWP and WinUI to launch stuff, as the name suggests. And it allows you to launch URIs, it allows you to launch files, and it allows you to launch folders. In this case, launch means open, so it's a kind of weird naming, but we will allow it. So there are two issues for this, actually, for folders and files separately. And at least on some platforms, adding support for these should be quite reasonably simple. So I was thinking that that could be a good thing to look into, and also it should be a good kind of reference for how to contribute such an API into no platform. So let's get started with that, right? So what I have done here already is that I switched to .NET 7 as a target, specifically .NET 7 without any platform specific target. So I will start with Skia because that should be probably the easiest one to accomplish here. So where do we have it? So here we go. So I have Visual Studio open here, and what I will look for is Launcher. And Launcher has multiple files, actually. There's actually quite a few of them. I'm even wondering if it would be more reasonable to put it in a specific folder, because there is a lot of files related to Launcher. So maybe it would be more appropriate, more maintainable to put it in a Launcher folder. So let's do it. Let's put it in a folder. So all of this should belong to Launcher, nothing else. So let's do so. And we will not prompt. And we will not adjust namespace because you want to keep that WinUI compatible namespace to be there. So I will commit this change actually, because moving files, so Git recognizes that I just moved files. So refactor. Folder. So yeah, it was a quick commit, I would say. Let's see, what is the remote should be. Yes, I want to push it into origin. So here we have our new branch. And now let's start actually implementing this, because it shouldn't be too hard, especially on WPF, where we have the full power of Windows at our disposal. So we should be able to do this. So I will create a new extension, new part of the extension. Like this Launcher extension is used on Skia to provide a implementation point, which can be then for which the implementation can then be supplied by the target platform, be it GTK or Tizen or WPF. So in this case, I created a Launch.URI-Async here, so that's used for launching of URIs, of course, and then there should be Launch.FileAsync, and that should be a storage file, or iStorage file, I think it was the storage file, and we will have also a LaunchFolderAsync. So I think it was interface based, but let's see. let's verify this in the documentation of WinUI. So we have launcher class, which has method LaunchFolderAsync, which has iStorageFolder as a parameter, and there is also LaunchFileAsync with iStorageFile as a parameter, and there is also another one which has launcher options and folder launcher options, and I will see what it contains, if there are some useful properties that we could implement. But a list of items to select, that's interesting, but for simplicity, let's now focus on the basic launcher, and then we will potentially implement other stuff. So there are the methods. Oh, there's also launch folder path async. So we could probably implement that. So maybe let's adjust this so this takes in iStorage folder. Well, maybe let's do both, because in case of Tizen, I'm not sure if there will be an option to show a path specifically, but this should be fine. So yeah, maybe it should suffice for now, and later we can adjust it. So I will focus on path of a folder, and for storage file, I maybe also be fine with a storage file path instead of the interface itself, because on GTK and WPF we have the full access to the file system, so we can get a path of any folder or any file that we are using, so we should be able to do this quite fine. So on Skia, we have the implementation. I will use file scope namespaces while I'm at it. So we have launch URI platform async. Yeah, okay. So let's check the main file here. So in the launcher class, we have this root file which contains implementation for launch URI async, which basically provides some basic checking first, and then calls the platform specific implementation of the method. And I think in macOS we had already implemented launch folder path async, launch file async, and launch folder async. So we probably would like to kind of move this implementation to the shared file. Like I mean move the basics of the implementation to the shared file, and then the specifics to the macOS. So similarly to what we have with URI as well. So let's see. I can probably copy this and move it here and rename it. Let's see. Let's actually take the launcher CS from generated classes, and so we have the correct signature there. So the path, launch folder path. Then there is, so we implement it on Skia. And yeah, so we can implement it on Skia. Then we have launch folder path. Launch folder, right, like this. So launch folder async, so this method we want to implement. And finally launch file async, so this one. So these three methods and we want to have them present only on Skia and macOS. Yes, macOS. So this is okay. Where is this? Why is there two Launcher.async ones? Yeah, right. I copied it, of course. So first off, this checking of dispatcher thread and that the file or path is not null is going to be used everywhere. So I will take this part from here, right? Storage folder. So this is the storage folder. Put it here. Of course, we want to get rid of these ugly global namespaces, so let's remove that. Also remove this one. Yes, okay. So we need to import some namespaces here, and we need to make sure that we import that namespace only for Skia or macOS for now, because other systems, our targets don't have that implementation yet, so the namespace would be there unnecessarily, and it could complain during the CI as the namespace is not actually used. So LaunchFileAsync, let's move that here. Actually, why am I doing this like that? I can have it side by side, but the right one, of course. Yeah, of course, I forgot about one thing, and that I need to mark this as implemented here. Launch file and launch folder async. So this one should be marked as implemented. And this one we have marked already, but not deleted this part. So these three methods are now marked as implemented, and now we just need to actually implement them. So I will put here this launch folder path async, this check will be used everywhere, plus yes, so yeah, so we have this. This check should be there for file as well. Okay. And while we are at it, we can also add the docs from Microsoft documentation so that we have everything nicely documented, because it's a public member, so. And I'm not sure if the class it's not even documented here, so I will take care of that as well. So let's do this. Then we have method LaunchFileAsync. So this one. Here we go. If the file is null, this not implemented one is not relevant, then the file itself, no, the file. And then we have the folder async, launch folder async, if the provided folder is null, and then, oh, right, then the folder, very simplistic documentation. Oh, it is the folder to display in File Explorer. Okay, and the result of the operation is, it's a asynchronous result, so it's basically a boolean but wrapped in a async operation. So finally, folder path async launches File Explorer and displays the contents of the folder. Oh, right, too much. And right, so file path, folder to open. So the result of the operation here, if the provided path. So now we have the basic. Oh, right, basic documentation there almost, except for launch URI async and query URI async. So I will add that query URI support async. Here. I'm clicking always on the links. So here we go. If the URI is null, and oh, actually we can replace these checks with is null because it's more cooler nowadays. So yes, we have this, and finally documentation for launch URI async should be here. So let's do it. URI. I could have written that. Okay, this is the. We don't have options there yet, so that's the other. So this returns true if launched or not, and if the URI is null. And if the method is called from non-UI thread. So this is important because this same UI thread check will need to be present on all the methods. So I will separate this into separate method. I actually could do a refactoring maybe. What is the refactoring? Refactorings, extract method, ensure UI thread. So this method will take care of checking if we are on a UI thread and will throw in case we are not. So I will put this into the bottom because it's a private method only, and I will call. Maybe let's add caller member name with null, and so this is caller member name. Method name like this. So this way, by using the caller member name attributes, this string will always contain the name of the method that called, that attempted to call the launcher at that point. So in this case, we will be in launcher UI async. URI async. We will be showing launch URI async must be called from the UI thread and so on. So this will be very nice because it will be user friendly and the user will exactly know which method failed on him, on them. So we have ensure UI thread. Let's put it here, and let's put it also here, and let's put it also here. So on all of those methods, we will be checking for UI thread presence, and if not, then we will throw. Even though we technically probably wouldn't have to be checking it in our case, because we on WPF, I don't think it really matters if you are on a UI thread or not for this specific operation, but having it in line with, hello Dominic, welcome. How is everything going? How is your MB work going? So by having the check the same as on UWP or WinUI, we know that people won't be surprised when their application will be working everywhere except for WinUI, because WinUI specifically requires UI thread. So it makes sense to have that exception everywhere, so it is consistent. And also people will probably get a better error message from Uno platform than from WinUI, so it probably will be helpful even for that specific purpose. So let's see. So let's try to implement this in a fashion very similar to what we've done for URI. So we have launch URI platform async. So we will have the same kind of thing for the other methods as well. So it's gonna be launch file. Launch. Launch folder. And folder path. Right, so now let's create those methods, and let's create them first on macOS, because there the implementation was already there. Right, it is also here, so I'm sweating a little bit. But good stuff. Definitely check about the media player. It should work for video files, but working of audio is not completely certain. So I think it will be helpful, so we know what we are up against, and if we will need to wait for some implementations on the Uno side itself. Right, so yeah, just renaming the methods so that they are private and they are based on the same convention there. So folder platform async. This one just calls the other method by extracting path, and that's gonna be very similar to what Skia targets will be using. So it's just kind of redirecting that call to another place. Folder path platform async, and again it's gonna be private. And we can actually call this directly, or maybe just for validation we can launch folder path async. It will go through the null check again, so that's probably useful. Let's keep it like this, and I can do this to make it nicer. So yeah, I think in this case it should be okay. Now this is returning async operation, and that's really unnecessary. So maybe we could, let's see if the other ones are using that as well. So we see that these are using task instead of async operation because it's just easier to work with. So I will switch to task. We'll call this one then, and we can get rid of async operation. I'll kind of simplify that platform specific code. Right, so we have this done. Hopefully we didn't break anything on macOS. Just need to adjust this. And actually I don't, because there is async operation already. So this is going to be a task, and this is going to transform that task result to a async operation. So it will be compatible with this. So let's implement this on Skia. So I will just copy this, paste it in here. Yeah, URI platform async, so I'll put it here. And of course we don't have NS workspace and stuff like that, but we will be calling the extension there. Right, and this is URI fallback async. Yeah, so this is using process start. So path. This is launch folder async. So async folder, and this implementation part will again this folder path, this iStorage folder version will just again forward this call to launch folder path platform async, and there is a support for a fallback that launches that file using process launcher, and it is possible actually that we will use this approach on WPF as well. So maybe it will be relevant, but for now let's keep it like this, and let's do false here. So if we are not able to launch this using the launcher extension, then we will return false, as we were not able to launch it. So, and this is gonna be very similar. So file.path, and we should be good to go. So now we have the second layer of indirection here, and now finally we can implement these methods on specific targets. So I will open WPF here. We have query URI support, launch URI support. As you can see it, as I mentioned, it's actually using the process to start the URI, so it's not different, not much different from what I would expect to be the implementation for files and folders. But let's see. So let's use our good friend ChatGPT. And let's see. Okay. Okay, let's use GPT-4. How to programmatically open a folder in WPF C#. Let's see. So explorer.exe. Yes, that makes sense. So I will use this and add the implementations. Let's move it here. So the difference here is it's using shell execute. Yeah, I think we want. Oh, but we don't. We're not using. The question is if we don't need it or not. But let's try it without it first, and see what happens. And interestingly, this gives us the process, and this gives us a boolean. So let's do it similarly like this. So var process. And it's gonna, okay, so this is a file name. Ah, okay, so this if this, if it doesn't start, right, null if no process resource is started. So return and we need to have this. All right, let's do it nicely. So process and return task from result. Process is not null. Okay, so that's for the folder, and now the same for now the same for a file. No, it seems to be kind of the same. Yeah, it will run the default application associated with the given file type in the operating system. Okay. So let's do this, shall we? Launch.FileAsync. I'll put it here. And we will be doing this approach here. So, or no, actually, okay, it supports the process start info, so that's nice. Process start info, file path shall execute, and the file path will be this one. And again, the same check here. If it launched, then we are all good. So that should be the implementation on WPF. And let's verify this. Let's verify this in a sample. There is also already a launcher tests sample, and it has some examples there, including actually Launch.FileAsync. So that's nice, and also LaunchFolderAsync. So that's pretty nice. So those are already prepared there, so I can just easily use those. Even though there is launch folder path, but not launch folder, so I will maybe make another method for folder path. Open folder path. Duplicate this. This will be using folder async, and the same for path. Open folder path. So yes, this one will be using open folder, launch folder path async. Right. So I think we should be good to go on WPF at least. So let's run this sample and let's see how it works. I'll put breakpoints here. The first should be a simple txt file, and the second should be the local folder for application data, and then local folder path. So, and unfortunately local folder and local folder path are not too correct right now on Skia, because on those targets we have a single local folder for all UNO apps, and that's not correct at all. But I have opened a PR that will fix this as a breaking change for 5.0. So then finally we will have application specific application data as well as application data folders, which will be cool. So system, launcher. So let's open a sample file. Okay, so we created a file on local file system here in temp, and this should launch it. All right, it's there. Okay, so launching a file works in WPF. And then we have a sample folder path. So the path to the folder is there, and we should open the local folder for the user. Not great, but not terrible. And finally, a sample for the path should be the same thing, just with different method. So, okay, WPF works. So I will probably now commit this. So let's test add sample for storage folder. Now the implementation. So this maybe let's separate it into two. So this will be refactoring async launch folder. Path async. So this was just moving the methods from macOS specifically to the root folder and to the root file, and also implementing it in a shared manner with Skia and file scope namespaces. Right, so that's this one. Are we all good here? Yes. And now the implementation on Skia. So feed support for launch file async launch folder async launch folder path async and on WPF. Okay, so that's this one, and now let's see what we can do for GTK. So GTK is gonna be more interesting because on GTK we for files we should be able to take the same approach, because launching files on Linux, for example, is going to be the same thing as in case of WPF, but the question is about folders. That's gonna be more tricky. The launcher extension is launcher extension on GTK, and so for URIs it uses the same approach, but the question is how about folders? We can try to use our friend ChatGPT again. Maybe. My suspicion is that you could just start a process with the folder path instead of the file path, and it might work without the Explorer XZ. was dangerous. xdg open command. Let's just search for so in Linux we call it directories. Sharp, maybe. Right, so this seems nice because you are using open verb and they are using it for folder as well. So let's use this approach for Linux. Maybe it's gonna work. So we can try then on WSL. Ah, not here. Nope. But technically, this means that we could implement this on both Skia GTK and Skia WBF the same way, maybe. Because now that the difference between those two codes will be none, we could maybe move it to a shared implementation. But it's just refactoring for later, so it's fine if we put it here for now. And let's do it here. Launch folder, and that could be here in Launcher Skia. Ah, right, not here. Or even we could even put a internal method here that will be doing that launching using the verb open with that path. So maybe let's do that. That seems like a nice solution. So let's create a internal static method. Task pool launch path. So this will be a shared implementation that will be using this approach to launch the file. And right, where's that? Not here. Where was it? File name, yes, the file name. In this case, I think this is a file name. So the URI, it can be URI or file name. So in this case, I can use this implementation even for the URI. So all of them will reuse this single implementation. Okay, that's a little bit more than I wanted. So this fallback URI. Right. So we have this, it crashes, could not launch. Path. Path of URI. So this launches a process for a given path, whatever it is. It might be URI, or it might be an actual file path. Async, of course. Or is it needed? No, it can be just a simple boolean, nothing too problematic there. So return process start, return false. Very simplistic solution, but it will be enough in this case. So start process for path, or maybe let's call it try start, because it returns boolean in case it doesn't start properly. So this should be okay. What was the original? What was it using? Okay, oh, I don't know. Original string. And yes, so now we don't have to do this. We can do from result. Yeah, but we have to this. Yeah, we have to do this because it's already async. So like this. And now for the extensions. So the extensions can just call launcher try start process for path. Very simply and easily. From result in here. But the same thing will be happening here. And the reason why I'm not simply removing this implementation altogether and moving it to the launcher Skia is that potentially for future platforms, if we add new Skia targets or if we renew the Tizen support, those will not be using process start info and process because those will not be implemented there. You will need to use a platform specific approach. And for that reason, I'm for now duplicating the code a little bit, but it shouldn't be a problem in this case. It's just a simple interaction and it should be fine. And this is exactly the same code, so I don't see a reason why to complicate things here, and can just use this. Right, so this can be taken and used on WPF and as well on Skia. Right, so the code is now much simpler, but hopefully it will also work properly. So I will launch first the GTK app on Windows. Test it there. And maybe what I can do later is remove this like fallback that we have for URI launching, because the implementation will be used anyway. Like I can put this here and here as well, like a fallback, but it will be the same code. It's still launching the same process start info, so it's just duplicated attempt basically. So let's see. Our samples app is running. Let's go to Windows System, Launcher, open sample path. Okay, so our local folder with path of this opens successfully. We open the sample file, it works. We open the sample folder path, it works. So now let's do WSL. That's gonna be interesting. I'm not completely sure what's gonna happen. Like, the file should open. I'm not completely sure about the folder because the WSL UI, not sure if it has a folder explorer or something. Not sure. It should be there, but so sample file. Didn't open. Okay. Row. Come on. No such file or directory. Huh. No such file or directory. So that's a weird error in this case because the file should be created for sure. Okay. That crashed spectacularly. I'm thinking if the local cache folder is the problem because it might not work properly on Linux. So the path is temp hello. Indeed, it seems that it's just not created. Open sample folder also doesn't work. Open sample folder path also doesn't work. File name has not been provided. Okay, let's see. Folder. So the path of local folder is empty. That's new. So maybe the problem is actually with the application data itself. Folder. Why is it not? Why does it have no path? Right, this is fine, but no path. It might be that the special folder is not there, but it seems that it should use this special folder on Unix. Okay. Very interesting situation there. So application data is has changed in my PR, so I'm not sure where I'm pointing in that PR, and we need to definitely verify if it works on Linux, because if it doesn't, then it's not great at all. So this PR, you have GTK, Skia. So the temp path is same, and for we have local application data there everywhere. Okay. That could be a problem. So let's see. I will just create a variable here. So I know which path does it provide me with, and maybe I will do the same thing here. Not here, like this, just so I know if that path even makes sense on Linux. It should, but it might actually be a problem. Let's see, WSL, let's go. So the path here is empty. And here it's also empty. Perfect. So that's super bad. How can it be empty completely? That's so weird. Okay, let's try home. No. Special folder. Common application data might be useful. Let's see what it returns. So maybe this needs to be, definitely this needs to be adjusted on my PR as well, because I was counting on that assumption that the folder path is actually meaningful, but it is not. So okay. So I convert to draft again. So the local path. So this is now pointing to an actual folder, which is nice. So even though it's not yet the proper path, let's see if we can open that path using the launcher. Right, that's no, oh right, because it's trying to it crashed the launcher page. Yeah, we're trying to now, right. Permission denied. Permission denied. So how can I write some to some useful location? Let's see. Let's see. Not right. It's C#. So let's use this one. So let's use special for user profile, because we should have access to that one. So these are just temporary changes. I will fix that later, and I will need to fix it in the other PR, because this is not working now on Linux, or at least not on this WSL version of Linux. So this is, yeah, so okay, so this is pointing to my personal folder, so maybe I will be able to write there. Sample and sample folder path. The path is now not empty, but it is not launching the process. Okay. No such file or directory. Why? So maybe the opening the folder with the open command is not really working there. It is possible. Well, let's try the file, but the file is written into temp and it gets deleted immediately, so that doesn't work either. Let's do this for now as a quick change, and then I will check WBF to see if the changes didn't break WBF, because we are now opening the folder without the Explorer XZ, so it could cause issues. Right, so one more try here. But actually, yeah, on a Windows it worked properly, so I think the GTK worked, so it should work still on WBF as well. Open sample file. Now we have it in a non-temporary location, but it's still not working. No such file or directory. I'm not sure why. The file should be there. And we should be able to see that, right? Where is... Oh, maybe I can access it via this one, right? Yes. So home... No, not this home, but that home? Yes. Hello TXT is there. And it says hello world, so... Why are you lying to me? Why are you lying to me that the file does not exist? That's so weird. Let's try one more time in here. Not here, but in Launcher. Skia. Let's see what the final path is. So the path is home mzigmund hello txt. It doesn't seem wrong. It seems that the path is correct, so I'm not sure why it doesn't launch. Let's search for that one more. So yes, exactly what I am facing here. Oh, what? So, it's really weird. Okay, so this is definitely weird. Because the path definitely exists and we should be able to open it. I don't see a problem with that. Just one more try without this completely, but I don't think that will help. So in that case, we'll have to let this wait for next attempt next time, but at least the WPF implementation worked. So that's nice, and we could have it as implementation for now, even on GTK, because it's working on Windows. So it's gonna work on GTK on Windows, it's gonna work on WPF on Windows, but not yet on Linux. And we can try to implement it better next time. Let's see, one more try here, but I'm not optimistic about this one. Open file, and yeah, it's complaining still with working directory, permission denied now, permission denied. That's a new one, but that's a new one. So maybe that I'm trying to access a file toward which the process does not have permission, which could make sense. But this should work, so I'm not sure what's wrong there. So for now, let's keep it like it is, and I will need to address this separately on my PR for application data. But for now, let's push the changes that are actually meaningful. So this. Let's just do one more check and verify the WPF implementation. Copy commit info. So for Windows, it's fine. Only the Linux version is problematic. So this is okay. Let's see. Windows system, launcher, sample folder, sample path for the folder. It's already open, and the file. This works fine. So I think this is okay. And the only thing I need now is to actually create a draft PR for this, so I can keep in mind that I have this started. So maybe I can push this for async, path async, and launch file async. Okay, but I'll open it just a draft and add a to-do. So this is the to-do. All right. So we have at least something that's partially working, and let's try to move forward with this and try to understand why the Linux version is not working and fix it next time. And we can also next time try implementing this on iOS and Android in some capacity. It's not going to be complete support because on Android and iOS you have the limited file system access, so you cannot easily launch anything or open any folder, but at least partial support could be implemented, hopefully. So yeah, that's it. So thank you for joining me today for this session, and I will see you next week. Hopefully next week, yes, I think so. So I will see you next week, and in the meantime, keep coding and have a good day.